Okay, so dryer repair video part 2. Okay, we talked earlier in part 1 about the circuit diagram and how to troubleshoot that and look at that. So today we're going to drop down here to the basement and look at our dryer down here. And this one is actually broke. Its symptoms are that it won't start at all when you push the button. And so we'll look at that. So anyway, so the first thing you want to do is keep from dying when you're doing this. So always make sure you unplug it. This thing's got 240 volts in it, and it'll kill you pretty fast. All right, just takes a second mistake and you're dead. So make sure you always unplug it. That's always step number 1. Okay, and I pulled it away from the wall. Now I took off the hose off of it. And now the next thing you want to do is take off the back. And I've done that already here. So just to save time, I'm just going to remove this. And once you pull the back off, you can see all of our components there. Okay. One thing I forgot to mention in part 1 is usually inside this back cover, when you pull this off, there's usually a set of plans back in here, usually taped to the back of this with the circuit diagram in here. So I've copied these, and I've actually highlighted what we talked about earlier and stuff about what possible components. And we talked about how it could be the motor could be bad. Okay, this is usually a symptom of it not starting. And we looked at the things that could maybe keep the motor, that could keep the motor from starting. Okay, one of them is this thing called the thermal fuse right here that I've highlighted. Also, if there's a problem with your start switch, okay, and if there's a problem with your door switch, all of those are in series with our motor to get to power. Okay, so any of these 3 are your easy low-hanging fruit to pick. To check these guys. If these don't solve the problem, then it's most likely going to be in the timer switch. And I'll show you the timer switch in just a second, what this looks like and how to troubleshoot each of these components. The other symptoms that you sometimes come into is it'll start, but it won't heat up. That means it's not getting to the heating element, and that is one of these 4 things. It could be the heating element itself is bad, or it could be the high limit thermostat, or the operating thermostat, or the thermal cutoff here. I'll show you where each of these are too and how to check them. So, okay, so it should be pretty straightforward. So let's take a look and see where these are and how to test them. All right, so we drop down in here. At first it looks like a lot of spaghetti, but if you just slowly look through it, it's not that bad. We've only got a very limited number of components here. So we've got a number of different things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so anything you see some wires coming to it, okay, those are some of those things that we talked about on that circuit diagram. And for the most part, you don't have to know what they are, but if you want to, you can actually tell by the color wires. We can see here, this one's got 2 light blue wires coming into it. On the circuit diagram, I forgot to mention this before, but on the circuit diagram, it actually talks about the colors. And we can see here for the thermal fuse here, it's got LBU and LBU on each side. That stands for light blue and light blue. So this one that we're looking at here, this is the thermal fuse, and this is one of our possibilities for the things that could keep the motor from starting up right now. Okay, so this one you can see I've already loosened the wires on it, and this is the bad one that's still in place here. I have checked it, and the way you check it is really pretty simple. You just take an ohm meter and you check the resistance of that element. Okay, so that's what we'll check right here. Is we just put the ohm meter on here, and I'll try to tilt that up so you can see it. And we check that component, and you can see it stays OL. Stays OL in there. That means it's not connected. So if that thermal fuse isn't connected, it's not going to be able to have the electricity flow through it, and our dryer won't start up. And that's going to be how we're going to check each of these components, is just to check its resistance. If it's OL, then it's bad. Okay, so this one is bad. So, and I've already purchased the new one for this, so I'm just going to yank this. In this case, it's just 1 screw. Pull out that 1 screw, and this thing comes out. It just comes right out of there, and you can see they're about $5-6. Okay, this one cost me $6 to replace, so this is the bad one. And I've got the new one right up here. So here's the brand new one. And if I check this one for its resistance now, you see the ohm meter here, I'll check this one out. We can see now this goes to 0.1, signifying this is a good thermal. This is a good thermal fuse. Okay, so that's the good one. That's the one I want in there. So I'm going to go ahead, just pop that back in. Easy enough. The thermal fuse is inside this white thing here. It senses the temperature inside our heat flume here, inside this heat pipe. And then I'm just going to screw that back in place. And just a single screw. I'll tighten that down after we're done with doing this, but then I can just pop these light blue wires back on there, and easy peasy to check that. Okay, and that's how we check each of these components. Okay, if any of them read OL, then they're bad, and you can pull them out and you can check out their part number, and you can go online, or sometimes some of your local hardware stores will carry these replacements and stuff, and I can go through and check each of these. Okay, so we got the spinning drum here, just big picture stuff. It's going to be blowing the hot air. This is the heating element here, and we can actually check the heating element to see if it's burned out just by checking these two values, and the actual heating element's up inside here. That's where the air gets heated. And I've got a past one that burnt out on me a long time ago, and I had to replace it, but this thing sits up inside of here, kind of like that, and these two connections come out the side here. So what you're seeing right here is the bottom of this. So it's got a heating coil, and this is what takes 240. This is what gets the 240 volts to heat up and dry your clothes. And obviously the danger with this is we don't want to get it so hot that it ever sets your clothes on fire. Okay, that'd be bad. So that's what all these other things here are, just thermostats to monitor the temperature, to shut things off if things ever get too hot. And they shut down the heating element once you get to operating temperature to make sure you don't overshoot. And then as a further precaution, we got things like our thermal fuses and things like those that blow in case things get too hot. Okay, that often happens if you forget to clean the vent, the dryer vent. If that doesn't get cleaned, then the hot air builds up inside there, and then you start tripping things like fuses and stuff. So anyway, that's the heating element. Okay. So yeah, these components, pretty easy to check. So what's left? If we were to check all these and all these were good, okay, then we can go check our push to start switch. Let's see where that is. Okay, that is up here on this top part right here, and I took off this back panel right here. And this is where the timer, so this is the timer over here on the right. And I've got an old one of these that I've had to repair in the past. This one, I even saved it because it says the hot air only works. This one still semi-works, but only the hot air feature. So if I ever got in a pinch and it was the middle of winter or something and the dryer went out, I could pop this one back in there, and we would only have the really hot setting and not the mild or whatever. The lower setting wouldn't be available. So anyway, these are about $60 to $70 usually. So these are a little more pricey, but these are pretty durable. They last quite a while. So all right, and then the start button is actually over here. This is coming out, and push the start buttons on this back side right here. And it's just a switch. It's actually a momentary switch. It's not a toggle switch. It's just a momentary. So it only turns on as long as I'm holding it. And this one, again, we can test it just by pulling these two wires off here. Okay, and we can, again, just take our multimeter. And we'll take our multimeter and we'll put it on that switch. And to do this one here, single-handed, I'm just going to gator clip these guys. just make my life a little easier. I need 3 hands to do this. Okay, and I'm just going to gator clip these to this connection here. And this is a good switch. I've already checked this one before when I was troubleshooting this thing before. So right now you see it's OL, so it's not connected, but when I push the button, you can see it goes to 0.4. So that thing's working just fine. Just like a switch should, it's making connection when I push it, and it's going to OL. So it's not a toggle switch, so it doesn't hold. It just, that's a good switch. So that told me that it wasn't the switch that was my problem. So that's how you check the push to start switch. Pretty easy. Again, this is all just ohm meter applications, checking for continuity. Anything doesn't complete the connection, that's probably what's keeping it from starting. Okay. So the only thing we got left to check is the door switch. And I'll show you how to do the door switch. It's a little bit more involved. Not much, but on this one, okay, tends to be around front. I got to pop the top off. And you can see this is a pretty old dryer. This thing is almost 20 years old. I fixed this thing probably 15 to 20 times. About once every other year or so, something breaks on it. But once a year, once every 2 years, something breaks on it. So I've repaired this thing so many times and saved a fortune by not having to go buy a new one. But anyway, so to check the door switch, my door switch is around here. You get a little switch there that gets pushed when you take the door in. Okay. So to check the door switch, we've got to pull this one out, pull out the heating vent on here. And up here too. So up here, now in this one, you got to take out these screws up here. So this, otherwise I won't be able to pop the top. I'm going to try to keep from dropping these down the heating vent here. So you pull these 2 screws, and you can see I can't get at the wires on this switch directly here. I just got this switch detent itself right here. So I've got these 2 screws out now. Now I gotta pop this top so that I can access the wires inside of here. Okay. So for that, I've got to pry this up now. You see that pops up nicely. And I can pull this up. Oh, don't want to lose my screwdriver down inside there. Okay, and then I've got my 2 wires right here coming from the switch. And again, I can just, these have a little detent here you got to push in. This one was kind of a bugger when I checked it, but you just pull these apart. Let's see if it's gonna probably fight me. Yeah, anyway, you just pull this apart by pushing down that little detent in there, and it'll unlock these and you can pull them apart. Then you can stick your multimeter in here, just like any other switch, and you can push the button and watch the resistance come and go. So watch it go from OL to closed circuit or low resistance. Okay, and this one, when it's pushed, it should go to low resistance, and when it's popped open, it should go to OL, telling you the switch is open. Okay, if the switch were broken, it would never connect when you pushed it. Okay, and that would tell you got a bad switch, and that's a cheap enough component you can pick up. You can pick up pretty easy at any parts store. So, okay, and that's how we check. And I've had this go bad on me before, so I've replaced these once or twice. Also, there's one of these on the washing machine. I've replaced those before. So, cheap, easy part to fix if you just know how to use a multimeter. So those pop back together again, and we can screw it back up. Piece of cake. Okay, pretty easy to fix your dryer. Nothing too complex here. Biggest thing, like I said, just make sure you get it disconnected from power so that you don't get electrocuted. So, okay, Yeah, that pretty much covers everything back there that we looked at on the circuit diagram. So good luck with your troubleshooting in the future if and when your dryer breaks down. And I can pretty much guarantee you it's going to break down probably within certainly even if for a brand new one, within the first 4 or 5 years, you're probably going to have to repair something. So, all right, have fun.